For decades, the Palestinians have been fighting for an independent state. It has been discussed and debated from political, social, and religious rights. The major conflicts between the Palestinians and the Israelis are the 1967 borders, the right of return for the refugees, and the settlements. There have been numerous attempts to come to a compromise by the United Nations and international community for a two-state solution. The roots of the conflict started after World War I, when Palestine was handed over to the British government after the reign of the Turkish Empire. As a result, the government of Britain created the Balfour Declaration in 1917, which stated that nothing shall be done which may prejudice the civil and religious rights of existing non-Jewish communities in Palestine, or the rights and political statutes enjoyed by the Jews in any other country. But the main purpose of this declaration was to create a small Jewish state alongside the surrounding Arab states of Palestine.
The Jews flourished in the Arab world at a time when they were being persecuted throughout all of Europe.
At the end of the 19th century, because of anti-Semitism in Europe, European Jews began to try and figure out a solution to the Jewish problem. A very small minority adhered to Zionism, the idea that the only place in which they could be safe is within a Jewish state.
Zionist Jews actually had a design on the land of Palestine, the idea of creating a homeland for Jews in the land of Palestine, and this is really the beginning of the conflict.
In 1967, one of the most critical wars had transpired. It was called the Six-Day War. Israel had said that they were attacked by Arab countries, but on the other hand, Zionist dreams were to make a superior territory for them. Isaac Weizmann, Israel's 7th president, stated that there was no threat of destruction, but that the attack on Egypt, Jordan, and Syria was nevertheless justified so that Israel could exist. Israel had launched several attacks on Syria, Iraq, Egypt, and Jordan. They occupied the Golan Heights, Gaza, the Sinai, and the West Bank, together with Jerusalem, all in 6 days. In 1948, Israel declared their independence, causing a war to break out between the Israelis and the Palestinians. As a result, 476 villages were destroyed, and over 800,000 Muslim and Christian Palestinians were forced to get out of their homes in Palestine, and they had become refugees. The Zionist Terrorist Association stole 200,000 and more Arab homes and apartments, shops, stores, factories, and commercial buildings. After the Arabs were being fled from their homes, the Jewish people had moved in. Ehud Barak, one of Israel's presidents, stated, "We cannot allow even one refugee back on the basis of right of return, and we cannot accept historical responsibility for the problem." The Israelis were trying to decrease the population of the Palestinian Arabs by not allowing any Palestinians who left during the country during 1948 and 1967 conflicts to return back. If an individual Palestinian kills an Israeli, their whole family would be punished by having their home demolished. But if an Israeli kills a Palestinian, they get sentenced a short time period in jail.
Every few days, if not every day, houses are demolished here. So I feel like what I'm witnessing here is a very systematic destruction of people's ability to survive, and that is incredibly horrifying. It's incredibly horrifying.
The number one myth that Westerners have about this conflict is that Arabs and Jews have been fighting for thousands of years and they're going to continue to fight.
This is really quite bizarre because all it takes is a little bit of reading of history to find out that this just isn't true. There is no congenital historical enmity between the Arabs and the Jews.
Israel has constructed many illegal settlements and military bases within the West Bank and Gaza, as well as allowing thousands of Jewish settlers to move there. This disobeys the Fourth Geneva Convention by allowing military bases into populated areas. The international community has declined to Israeli occupation in the West Bank and Gaza, but not much effort has been made to hold this international law into place for Israel's plentiful violations since 1967. Between 1967 and 77, there were 30 settlements in which 5,000 settlers populated. By 2003, 260,000 Israeli settlers lived in 121 settlements in the West Bank and Gaza, not including East Jerusalem. Israel took more houses and land by the absentee law, which states if someone is out of the country, their house or land can be taken. They took more land and demolished more houses by calling it a security zone. This especially happened in East Jerusalem, but it was to expand the Israeli border.
Armed settlements, about 190 of them, spread all over the West Bank.
Settlements are strategically built colonies of Israel that are connected by a network of roads which separate each Palestinian community from the next and confine their ability to expand. They are often constructed around the best farmland and water resources.
As a result of the Israeli government policy of not withdrawing from the 1967 borders and continuing to expand settlements, Palestinians had gotten revenge by attacking with suicide bombings on innocent Israeli civilians. The United Nations General Assembly on December 11, 1948, passes the resolution of ARES 194. This resolution came as a result of the 1948 war and Israel declaring their independence as a nation. This compromise states that the refugees wanting to return to their homes and live at peace will be allowed to at the earliest workable date. All damages caused to the property of the family will be paid for by the government or authorities. Also, to allow the refugees and all inhabitants of Palestine to travel by air, rail, or road to Jerusalem freely. Also, the United Nations General Assembly on November 22, 1967, passes the Compromise of ARES 242. It states the withdrawal of Israeli armed forces from territories occupied in the recent conflict, which means that Israel should leave the West Bank and Gaza as well as go back to the borders of 1967. Also, it states the right of every state in the region to live in peace within the secure and recognized boundaries, free from threats or acts of force. In addition, for achieving a just settlement of the refugee problem. The Palestinian and Israeli conflict, which is over a half-century old, has created a serious conflict in the whole area of the Middle East. Without Israel's full withdrawal to the 1967 border and reaching a just solution for the Palestinian refugees, extremism on both sides will continue to grow. At the end, Israel has to change its policies and commit itself to a just peace as an option to have the two states live side by side in compromise.